Social Security changes you need to know before you retire. There is a bill sitting quietly in Congress right now that almost nobody is talking about, and I find that genuinely surprising because this affects millions of Americans who are either already retired or planning to retire in the next few years. When I first came across it, I searched everywhere for coverage and found almost nothing. That silence is exactly why I decided to sit down and walk through it with you today in a clear and straightforward way. Before we get into the bill itself, let me give you a quick sense of why Social Security matters so much in the first place. More than half of current retirees rely on Social Security for at least half of their monthly living expenses. For many others, it makes up even more than that. Among people who are still working and planning for retirement, the majority expect Social Security to be a meaningful part of their income when they stop working. This is not just abstract numbers. For a lot of families, these checks cover essential costs like housing, groceries, utilities, and medical care. Without it, many would face real financial hardship. So when Congress makes any changes to Social Security, even ones that might seem small on the surface, they can have a very real impact on your financial life down the road. This program has been a cornerstone of retirement security for generations, and understanding even quiet developments like this one helps you stay prepared and avoid surprises later. The bill we are talking about today is House Bill 5284. At first glance, it sounds almost trivial. The official description says it is a bill to require the Social Security Administration to make changes to Social Security terminology used in rules, regulations, guidance, and other materials. In other words, it is a bill about words. It is about what we call certain things. And you might be thinking, why does that matter at all? Stick with me because I think by the end of this conversation, you will understand exactly why it matters and why you should be paying close attention, even if it feels technical at first. What the bill actually proposes is three specific terminology changes. Let us go through each one carefully so you have the full picture. First, the term early eligibility age would be replaced with minimum benefit age. Right now, age 62 is officially called the early eligibility age. That is the earliest point at which you can begin collecting retirement benefits from Social Security. Under this bill, it would be renamed the minimum benefit age. The reasoning given by the bill's sponsors is that this new name makes it clearer to people that claiming at 62 means you are accepting the minimum possible benefit. Specifically, claiming at 62 results in a permanent reduction of about 30% compared to what you would receive if you waited until your full retirement age. This helps set clearer expectations from the start. Second, the term full retirement age would be replaced with standard benefit age. Full retirement age, which most people in the financial world refer to as FRA, currently falls between 66 and 67 depending on your birth year. This is the age at which you receive your full unreduced benefit. The bill would rename this your standard benefit age. Third, the term delayed retirement age would be replaced with maximum benefit age. Age 70 is currently the age at which your benefit reaches its peak. For every year you delay collecting benefits past your full retirement age, your monthly check grows by approximately 8%. By age 70, your benefit caps out at 124% of what your full retirement age benefit would have been. The bill would rename this the maximum benefit age. Now, do words really matter that much in something as important as your retirement income? In one sense, no. The ages themselves are not changing. The percentages are not changing. The actual math stays exactly the same, whether we call it early eligibility age or minimum benefit age. If you claim at 62 today, you get 70% of your full retirement age benefit. If this bill passes, you would still get exactly 70%. Nothing about the real benefit structure is being altered by this bill. The money you qualify for remains the same. But words do shape the way we think about things. There is a reason marketers and communicators spend enormous amounts of time and money on what they call something. The word minimum carries a very different emotional weight than the word early. If you hear that claiming at 62 means you are claiming at the minimum benefit age, your brain immediately registers that as something inferior, something you should probably avoid if possible. Whereas early eligibility sounds almost neutral, even slightly positive, like you are getting access to something ahead of schedule. Similarly, replacing full retirement age with standard benefit age is subtle but meaningful. Full implies complete, finished, whole. Standard implies average, ordinary, the baseline. These are not the same feeling at all, and maximum benefit age instead of delayed retirement age makes waiting sound like a smart reward rather than something you are putting off. Over time, these kinds of shifts in language can quietly influence how millions of people approach their decisions. So yes, words matter more than we sometimes realize. And the real question is not just why these particular words were chosen, but what this bill might be preparing the ground for down the road. When the government changes terminology, it is rarely just about clarity for clarity's sake. Terminology changes often make future policy changes easier to explain and easier to accept by the public. Consider the history here. When Social Security was originally designed, the full retirement age was 65. Over time, that age was pushed back to 66 and then to 67 for people born after 1960. Each time that change happened, it effectively reduced lifetime benefits for millions of people because they had to wait longer to collect their full amount. These adjustments were made to help keep the system sustainable as people live longer. If the standard benefit age, as this bill would rename it, were to be moved from 67 to 68 or 69 or even higher in the future, that would be an enormous change for retirees and pre-retirees. And if that change were proposed using the new terminology, it might be slightly easier for policymakers to make the argument. They could say, "We are simply adjusting the age at which people receive the standard benefit. We are not taking anything away. The minimum benefit age is still available at 62. The maximum benefit age is still at 70. We are just moving the middle one." That kind of framing could make a very significant adjustment feel much more reasonable to the average person. And that is the concern worth keeping in your mind as this bill moves forward. It is not dramatic today, but it could open the door to bigger conversations later. This is why staying aware of even small updates is helpful for your long-term planning. Now, let us get into something that I think is genuinely underappreciated by most people planning their retirement. The math on when to claim Social Security is more nuanced than most online calculators, and most mainstream financial advice would have you believe. Here is the basic breakdown of how your benefit is affected by when you claim. If you claim at 62, you receive 70% of your full retirement age benefit. At 63, you receive 75%. At 64, you receive 80%. At 65, you receive about 86.7%. At 66, you receive about 93.3%. At 67, which is the full retirement age for most people currently, you receive 100%. At 68, you receive 108%. At 69, you receive 116%. And at 70, you receive 124%. As of early 2025, the average monthly Social Security check was right around $2,000. The maximum possible benefit for someone retiring at full retirement age in 2025 was just over $4,000 per month for those with the highest earnings records. These are real numbers that affect real budgets, from groceries and housing to healthcare and travel. Many people look at these numbers and assume that waiting is always better. But that assumption only holds if you look at the cumulative total of what you collect over your lifetime without accounting for what you could do with that money if you received it earlier. The standard break-even analysis most people get wrong goes like this. If you claim early, you get smaller checks. If you wait, you get bigger checks. At some point, those two lines cross, usually somewhere around 78 to 80 years old. After that point, the person who waited has collected more money in total. So the conventional wisdom says that if you expect to live past 80, you should probably wait. If you expect to live a shorter life, claiming early might make sense. But here is what that standard analysis almost always misses. It assumes you get zero return on the money you collect early. It assumes that if you start collecting at 62, you spend every single dollar of every single check immediately with no savings and no growth. What happens when you adjust that assumption even a little? the math changes significantly. If you take that early Social Security money and you set even a portion of it aside and earn just a 2% annual return on it, the break-even age pushes out further. At a 4% annual return, the advantage of waiting becomes much smaller. At a 5% annual return, the difference between claiming early and claiming late becomes almost negligible for many people out to age 90 and beyond. And here is the important follow-up question. Is a 4 to 5% annual return difficult to achieve without taking big risks? As of 2025, United States Treasury securities, which carry essentially no credit risk because they are backed by the federal government, were yielding between approximately 3.7 and 4.4% annually. That means you could take early Social Security money, put it into safe Treasury securities, collect interest with very low risk, and the break-even argument for waiting largely falls apart for a lot of people. Of course, everyone's risk tolerance and overall financial picture is different, so it pays to think it through carefully or speak with a trusted advisor. This is where things get personal, and I want to be clear that no single answer fits everyone. Your situation is unique, but here's a practical framework that many people find genuinely useful. Claiming early may make sense if it allows you to retire meaningfully sooner while you are still healthy and active. There is real value in having time and health at the same time. If waiting until 67 means you retire with more money but miss some of your best years, that is a trade-off worth thinking about honestly. It may also make sense if you have reasons to believe your life expectancy may be shorter than average due to family history or personal health conditions. And it can work well if you have the financial discipline to invest part of those early payments responsibly rather than spending everything right away. On the other hand, waiting often makes more sense if you have strong longevity in your family. If your parents and grandparents lived into their late 80s or 90s, there is a good chance you will too. Social Security is one of the few income streams in retirement that is guaranteed and adjusted for inflation. It rises with the cost of living. It cannot be outlived. It does not depend on market performance. The longer you expect to live, the more valuable that larger monthly check becomes as a form of protection. One data point that deserves more attention in retirement planning is the difference between average life expectancy and healthy life expectancy. Many Americans reach traditional retirement age with fewer years of good health left than they hoped for. This makes the timing of when you step away from work even more important. Thinking carefully about your own health, energy levels, hobbies you want to pursue, travel plans, and time with family can guide you better than any single rule. House Bill 5284 may look like a minor housekeeping bill about terminology, and maybe that is all it is right now. But it is worth paying attention to because the words we use genuinely shape how we think and how we react to future proposals. Stay informed, run your own numbers with your full situation in mind, and consider your health, family history, savings, and personal goals. Social Security is not a one-size-fits-all decision. Understanding the current rules and how they are described gives you a much better chance of making a choice you will feel good about for the rest of your life. Keep asking questions and plan thoughtfully.